Boris Johnson rained on his own Freedom Day parade by announcing that one of the most sinister byproducts of the pandemic is here to stay. The move to make vaccine passports, which exposed an individual's health status and created dangerous us and them culture, mandatory for entry to nightclubs and large events from September, has prompted fears about what might be next from those who've seen the government move the goalposts time and again. Right on cue, this afternoon, Business Minister Paul Scully refused to rule out the introduction of vaccine passports, which, remember, the Vaccines Minister Nadhim Zahawi told me in December were discriminatory and wrong, but he refused to rule them out for getting into pubs, saying, we're going to use the coming weeks to look at the evidence. So are vaccine passports the end of freedom as we know it? Dr. Anthony Hinton, consultant surgeon with 30 years' experience in the NHS, objects on medical grounds and fears they could spread to other aspects of life. But Sally Jane Cutler, Professor of Medical Microbiology at the University of East London, says vaccine passports could make a real difference in the fight against COVID. And compared to other countries, our rules ain't that bad. So, great to have you both here. Why do you feel that vaccine passports are so dangerous, Dr. Hinton?
Well, the problem with vaccine passports is they really make no medical logic, is the first problem. They're discriminatory and they can be extended to all sorts of other areas of life. If we look at why they make no medical logic, we have to look no further than what is currently happening to our Prime Minister and the fact that he's having to self-isolate. This is a man that has had COVID, has had 2 doses of the vaccine and will himself have a COVID passport. He has been in contact with the Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, who also has had COVID, has had 2 doses of the vaccine and therefore has a COVID passport. So what use was the COVID passport? People can be vaccinated and not immune because perhaps the vaccine didn't work because it wasn't kept at the right temperature or their immune system just didn't work well. Equally, there are people that are immune that have never had the vaccine because they've had natural immunity from catching COVID. The government themselves has said the vaccines are to reduce severe symptoms, hospitalisation and deaths, which absolutely it does seem to be doing. It hasn't given a complete break between cases and deaths, but it's reduced hugely. Back in January, about 1 in 50 cases resulted in death. At the moment, it's 1 in 2,000 cases. The vaccine was never supposed to stop people getting mild infections and being able to pass it on. So the passport is a nonsense medically.
So, Sally Jane Cutler, why are you so pro these vaccine passports when Dr. Hinton says they're just not going to work?
Actually, I think you'll find that we're going to agree more than we're going to clash. I think that vaccination is a great idea. I would actively encourage anyone to engage with the vaccination program because, as we just heard, it does give you protection. It does protect you against the severity of disease outcomes that you might suffer if you're not vaccinated. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be totally immune to infection. You can still get infected even if you're vaccinated, as some of the more notable examples that have been talked about over the weekend. So that just demonstrates
passports, though, why are you pro them then? I don't understand.
They can have some value. I would have said that the value of a vaccine passport would have been really useful early on when we were releasing from lockdown, when we were trying to get the economy moving again. And at that stage, people that were protected through the vaccination would be those people that you could have said, right, you can go back to work, you're at less risk than those who haven't yet had their vaccine. So in that situation, yes, it can be useful. I think, again, if you're working in a an environment where you've got lots of very vulnerable, susceptible people around you, again, then there is a potential good case for a vaccine passport.
Worry about our civil liberties and our freedoms.
Control.
But do you not worry about our civil liberties and our freedoms and the fact that actually we could be entering a state within a few weeks where actually to even enter a pub, before you can buy a pint at your pub, legally you would have to tell the landlord private information about your health? I mean, we're not a show us your papers country, are we, Sally Jane Cutler?
We're not. And I think what we've actually seen since the pandemic is the fact that now our personal private information has to sometimes be shown. And I agree entirely that it is not really embracing our standards for equality, fairness, sort of those standards, those social standards that we hold so dearly. It doesn't necessarily agree with that, but you have to think, what is the purpose? What are you actually trying to achieve here? And my main worry is the fact that why is it that we've just gone into this situation as of last Monday of when we've opened up the nightclubs again? At the moment, you don't need to have that. You have to just go by guidance of being a responsible citizen and thinking of others around you.
Great, which is absolutely great, because we should be trusting the population. I think it's absolutely brilliant that for a very brief moment in time, politicians thought we were sensible enough to make our own decisions, Dr. Hinton, but it feels like the scientific community...
And so the timing makes no sense unless there is some ploy to let the disease run riot during the summer months, so that then we can actually sort of start trying to control it again once we get the universities going back and everything else in September, October.
The government says on that front, though, that the timing is about the fact that it would be unfair to introduce vaccine passports before all young people have had the opportunity to have 2 jabs. So that's what they say about the timing. But Dr. Hinton, what do you make of that claim from Sally Jane Cutler that perhaps this is just the government trying to get to herd immunity through the back door by letting the virus run rampant amongst young people over summer? Do you buy that?
No one is suggesting to let the virus run rampant. And the best time to allow things to open up is during the summer, when the NHS is not busy doing other work that happens and builds up in the winter. We don't want to wait and start to do this opening up in October or November. The current suggestion of the Prime Minister and some in the government that these vaccine passports come in the end of September, but you will not be allowed to show you are not infectious by doing a test, is completely ridiculous. We've already agreed that the vaccine passports do not show you're not infected. They do not show you cannot pass this disease on, although it would be a lot less than in the past because there is a certain amount of population immunity now. But the one thing that you could do to show going to an event you are not infectious, which is to take a test that day or the day before, is the one thing that won't be allowed. And it's really just to try to force and blackmail young people who have decided that
it's about coercion.
Really do not need
it's about vaccine coercion. I think you're completely right.
The people that need the vaccines have had the vaccine.
Yep, no, good point. Good point.
People,
thank you very much.
Many of whom will have already had COVID, probably do not need a vaccine.
Nope, I hear you, and I think you're right. That was Dr. Anthony Hinton, a consultant surgeon, and before that, Sally Jane Cutler, Professor of Medical Microbiology at the University of East London. Absolute pleasure to have both of you on today's Clash. Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.